Patch 2.6.9 has been absolutely great for the Necro. Not only did it add a new set, but it also went back and buffed a lot of items that weren't really being utilized, and that opened up quite a bit of possibility. And one of those new builds that has just opened up is the SpiderMancer. So let's get into it. As always, quick caveat, in the gameplay above, we are playing at 1000 Paragon. So before you freak out and post your comment of, oh my god, 3k Paragon, stop. So for those of you guys that don't know, patch 2.6.9 saw quite a bit of changes happen to the Necro. The most important of which, at least the ones that we're going to be using in this build, is one, they buffed the base damage on Corpse Explosion by a lot, and they buffed the Grasp of Essence to go with it. And so normally the Grasp of Essence would give you 100% buff of stacking up to 5 times, so 500 damage, but the new one actually gives you 200% damage stacking up to 5 times, so give you 1000% Corpse Explosion damage. They also buffed the 6-piece bonus of Pestilence. They doubled it basically. So we're getting more damage from Corpse Explosion. We're getting more damage from Corpse Lance off 6-piece Pestilence, which is my favorite change that they've made in patch 2.6.9. And then finally, rank 2 change that they made was they made Jesseth Skull Shield and the Jesseth Skull Scythe a usable set finally. So basically, before you'd only get that 400% increased damage to minions if your skeletons were commanded to attack something. But now it's just a flat damage mod, 400%. So this opens up a lot of new things, and this particular build is basically a culmination of all these changes. So SpiderMancer, the name's kind of a meme, but you'll see why. So the reason we call it the SpiderMancer is because the coolest looking rune the Necromancer has to offer in the Corpse Explosion genre is Corpse Explosion Final Embrace. Now what this does is corpses pull themselves to the nearest target before exploding, and those corpses just happen to look like spiders. And this thing is the coolest looking skill you can possibly imagine. We are also wearing Pestilence, so every single time we pop Land of the Dead and we're spamming Corpse Explosion, we're spamming Devour, we're going to get free Corpse Lances that trigger and track the nearest target. We of course are wearing a 6-piece Pestilence here, so the 2-piece also triggers a Corpse Lance, and we're going to use that to our advantage and trigger crazy Corpse Lance damage on top of Corpse Explosion damage. So while we're flying off these spiders as fast as we possibly can, we're also devouring as fast as we can, and that's causing a ton of lances to get shot towards targets. Now, because we are wearing Pestilence, we're getting that free Corpse Lances being triggered off the 2-piece, and in this situation, we're actually running Blood Lance. And why Blood Lance is so good is it basically fires like an additional mini lance. So not only are you getting a 1750 Corpse Lance that's being shot out, but you're getting like an additional 525 Corpse Lance that gets shot out as well, and that obviously is a lot of damage. Now, because both of these cost life to use, we're going to be running a Devour with Cannibalize, obviously, to keep up our health pool. And if that's not enough, if you're still finding you're struggling to live, you can drop one of these passives and pick up a Dark Reaping, because we are running a Scythe. And so you'll see your health will dip, but most of the mobs on the screen are frozen, so it's not a huge deal. But if you just can't keep up the health costs, make sure to drop for Dark Reaping. The nice part about this build is we do have 100% uptime on Land of the Dead. This is a Land of the Dead build, so we're going to have 100% uptime. We're going to be able to fire off Corpse Explosion non-stop, Corpse Lance non-stop. And the cool thing about the rune on the Corpse Explosion is we can proc Zai, so we can always stand at range. And so we're getting maximum value out of our Corpse Lances, maximum value out of our Corpse Explosions, because we're really, really far away from the target. And so Zai's Stone of Vengeance is really, really good here. Now, one of the reasons the Jesseth Skull Scythe is so good now is not only because it's a flat 400% damage mod instead of being specific to minions, but you can actually trigger Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac via command skeletons. And for you guys who don't know, Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac basically reduces the cooldown of one of your remaining skills by 1 second anytime you hit with the resource pending attack. So what we do is we numlock the command skeletons, and as long as we have a target, our skeletons will shoot out and just attack whatever our mouse is hovering over and spam so that we can get crazy cooldown reduction. And every single time they hit, they're triggering our Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, and when they trigger Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, we get a 1 second off of our Land of the Dead. So we're basically juicing up both Corpse Explosion and both Corpse Lance at the same time in this build. We're using both as our main damage dealers. And we're juicing that up. You know, we're running Grass's Essence inside the cube, or you could wear that and cube the Corpse Whisper. The Grass's Essence again gives it a 1000% increased damage to Corpse Explosion. We are wearing the Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, which at maximum stacks will give us 600% damage to Corpse Lance. And this thing will be up 100% of the time because you get that 2-piece Pestilence, where you automatically fire up a Corpse Lance as soon as you consume a target. And we're gonna have 100% uptime on this because we are wearing the Pestilence set, and the 2-piece Pestilence fires the Corpse Lance for each consumed corpse. So the reason that's so good is obviously Corpse Explosion itself consumes a corpse, but we're also unlocking Devour. So both Corpse Explosion and Devour are going to consume corpses and fire off a free Blood Lance. Now, the reason I run both here is, one, we need Devour to survive and keep our health costs up because both of these skills cost health, and Command Skeletons cost essence to cast. So we do need the Devour Cannibalize rune to get the resource and the health back. The other reason is, you guys will notice when you numlock Devour and you spam Corpse Explosion, you actually get more lances being fired off than you would if you just spam Corpse Explosion. You can sneak in quite a few animations of Devour while you're triggering your Corpse Explosion. So this causes you to fire off more lances than you would normally. It also gives you that freedom if you're moving to fire off lances as well and not lose any damage. But overall, you just fire off more lances if you have Devour and Corpse Explosion going off at the same time. So we're numlocking two skills here, right? We're numlocking Devour Cannibalize, and we're numlocking Command Skeletons. And do keep in mind, make sure you're hovering over a target so that the Command Skeletons have a target to spam their attack on and trigger Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac procs. On the Command Skeletons, we are running Dark Mending in this setup. If you're struggling to get high cooldown reduction, you might want to drop this for Enforcer to reduce that cost, so you can spam it and have maybe better uptime on Land of Dead if you get really bad density. But again, we are like killing our own life pool here. We have two skills that cost health, so Dark Mending will just help us keep up the health cost by healing us for a bit of our life per hit every single time they swing. And of course, we're running Land of Dead, Frozen Lance, that keeps everything frozen, and of course allows us to spam corpse skills without actually having to have corpses on the ground. This is what this whole build revolves around. It is a 2-minute cooldown, and of course we're stacking crazy amounts of CDR. We're also going to be using Messerschmitt's Reaver in the cube, which reduces 1 second off your cooldowns when you kill an enemy. So obviously we're killing lots of enemies here, so the cooldown reduction on Land of Dead is going way down. So between high CDR, Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, and Messerschmitt's Reaver, you should have 100% uptime on your Land of the Dead. And finally, we're using Blood Rush with molting. Molting generates a corpse. The utility of the molting is pretty clutch here. Say if you're out of corpses, but you need to break down a door, that's where molting comes in. And molting just has a lot of synergy with builds that use corpses. We are staying at range, and we're utilizing squirts here to make sure that nothing even touches us. And then we're trying to keep everything frozen on the screen with Land of the Dead. So we're trying to ensure 100% uptime on the squirts. And we can, as a result, we can be quite squishy. So you want to make sure you're just staying away from anything on the screen. But because of this, we're going to be running Final Service. This makes it so if you die, you basically cheat death once per minute. We're also going to be running Rathma's Shield, which gives us like on-demand immunity for 4 seconds. You'll notice while you're playing the build, you have pretty good uptime on Land of the Dead, and you'll notice some overlap as well that can happen. So you can have the Land of the Dead be ready before Land of the Dead is even expired. So this is where Rathma's Shield comes in. It basically gives us 4 seconds of immunity to all damage for the first 4 seconds of Land of the Dead. So if you know you're about to take a ton of damage, you can pop Land of the Dead and save yourself, basically. Blood is power, no brainer. We're using blood skills, so we're triggering this thing super easy in this setup. As soon as we lose 100% of our life, we get basically 20% CDR. Absolutely crucial passive in this setup. And finally, we're running a Fueled by Death because this is a speed farming setup. We'll have 100% uptime on Fueled by Death because we are spamming corpse skills here. But again, a lot of other passives are going to be pretty strong here. Dark Reaping, again, if you can't keep up the health cost of both of these blood skills, if you find that you're dying, this can be a really useful thing to run. You can compare Commander of the Risen Dead with running Enforcer in case your uptime on Land of Dead isn't great. That gives you more ability to spam Command Skeletons outside Land of Dead and get that cooldown back faster. But assuming you are playing for density and going fast as you possibly can, you're going to have no problems keeping up 100% uptime on Land of the Dead. For gear, again, we are using the Pestilence 6-piece here. It's going to be super vital for doing our damage. We are using Real Roll Grander here because we can only wear 5 pieces of Pestilence because we have to wear the Corpse Whisper plus the Grasp of Essence. So you're going to need to pick up a Roar and either cube it or wear it on your person, which leaves open the belt slot. The belt slot, we're just going to use a Vigilant belt. It's the only belt in the game that can roll cooldown reduction. Captain set would be great here, but because we have to wear Grasp of Essence and Corpse Whisper, we can't fit in Casting Crimsons. So therefore, second place falls to Vigilant belt. Of course, wearing a Nemesis bracers here. You guys know this. I use this in all my SpeedFarm builds. This thing will shave time off of GR clears. Fantastic speed farming item. Of course, we're wearing the squirts. And again, stay away. Don't let anything touch you. You want to keep up 100% uptime on the squirts if possible. And again, this thing makes you pretty squish. So make sure everything's frozen. Make sure everything's way at range. And you should be good to go. And lastly, for the final jewelry slot, Crispin Sentence. No brainer here. Everything's frozen. So we're going to have 100% uptime on that triple damage bonus of Crispin Sentence. Easy peasy. Stat priority, again, cooldown reduction is a big deal. Attack speed actually is pretty helpful here as well. For some reason, you're able to animation faster, corpse explosion animation faster with more attack speed. So it does actually cause you to do a little bit more damage, but cooldown reduction is by far and away your most important stat. At full cooldown, you can get around 60%. But that's cooldown on every single piece of gear that we have on, basically. So for gloves, we're wearing Pestilence gloves. Quadfectos would be the best here. So attack speed, crit damage, crit chance, and cooldown reduction. The same thing applies if you're wearing Grasp of Essence. You're going to want that Quadfecta if you possibly can. For shoulders, either Pestilence or Corpse Whisper, depending what's in your cube. But Int Fight, cooldown reduction, and you can get Corpse Lance damage, you can get Corpse Explosion damage. I would honestly just go for whatever rolls naturally and whatever you can get Ancient. Both are great options for this build. For helmets, just a Pestilence Mask. Invite, crit chance is going to be the best here. Chests, Pestilence chest, Invite. Again, you can get Corpse Explosion damage, you can get Corpse Lance damage. Really just whatever rolls Ancient for you, I would just go for that. Because they're both are sources of damage in this particular setup. Vigilant belt, Invite, life, and cooldown reduction is going to be the best play. Pestilence pants, Invite armor and double sockets. Boots, Invite armor, movement speed is probably going to be the best setup here. For a Justice Skull Shield, a Quadfecta like the one I have here would be the best play. So damage, attack speed, cooldown reduction, and the socket is amazing. The Skull Shield is also pretty nice because it rolls like 5 stats. So Invite, crit chance, cooldown reduction are going to be the top. And then increased damage to elites you can actually roll on this thing, which is pretty nice. For bracers, this is a physical build. All the blood skills are physical damage, so we're going to want physical, Invite, and crit chance. Obsidian Ring Zodiac can only roll a certain way. You're just going to want to roll off the resource cost reduction and keep attack speed, crit chance, cooldown reduction, and a socket, which are all good stats for this build. And of course, Crispin Sentence. Really hard to roll well, as you guys, I'm sure, are well aware. But the dream roll will be attack speed, crit damage, and cooldown reduction socket. For the necklace, we're actually going to try to squeeze out a little bit more cooldown reduction. So ideally, in this particular setup, we'd want crit damage, rank 1, cooldown reduction, rank 2, and probably physical damage would be rank 3, and then socket. So again, squeeze out a little bit more cooldown reduction out of your necklace if you can. For legendary gems, we're using Bane the Trap. No brainer here. Flat damage mod, it's always good. Can't escape it. Zystone of Vengeance, we talked about earlier. Again, because we were trying to stay at range, we're trying to keep mobs like basically almost off screen. You don't want to be totally off screen because you want to be able to hover over the target and trigger your Obsidian Ring and Zodiac with the command skeletons. But you want to stay as far away as you possibly can. So Zystone of Vengeance is actually insane here. And then finally, this is up to you. We're using Bane the Powerful. Bane the Powerful is more damage towards elites. Specifically Juggernauts, because Juggernauts, as you guys know, are CC immune. So this is just that little bit of damage boost versus basically the Necro's weakness, which is Juggernauts. And after you kill that first elite pack in the Rift, things will get a little bit more smoother because you just get more damage overall. Now, if you're struggling, again, to keep up Land of the Dead, you can switch this to a Gokaka Swiftness and get that 15% additional cooldown reduction. But if you have, cooldown on every piece of gear, like 60% like we do here, you shouldn't have any problem keeping up Land of the Dead unless you just get a terrible map. And that happens sometimes. We get really bad maps like caves or something in Diablo. There's nothing you can do about that. But that's basically going to do it for the video. This build has been surprisingly sleeper fun. It's a brand new build for this season because of all the changes they made to Pestilence and Jessup and Corpse Explosion. It's just a ton of fun to play. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions, of course, leave them in the comment section below. We'll try to get to those as best we can. As always, guys, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. We love you guys. Peace out.